Welcome back to the Science and Shiny podcast from Fast Bowlers Limited. In this episode, we're joined by former England fast bowler, Ashes winner, and broadcaster Steve Finn. Finn reflects on a career that took him from debuting for Middlesex at just 16 to performing on some of the biggest stages in world cricket. The conversation covers the technical and mental side of fast bowling, dealing with setbacks and injuries, adapting across formats, and how coaching, biomechanics, and trust played a huge role throughout his career. Let's get into it.
Hi and welcome everyone to Science and Shiny with myself, Shiny, Jono, and we've got a really special guest today. We've been joined by Steve Finn, or Finny as no doubt we'll be calling him through this podcast. And just before we do the proper introduction to Finny, just let me go through his sort of timeline because it's pretty impressive. Steve made his debut for Middlesex at the age of 16 to become the club's youngest debutant. He had a fantastic career spanning 18 years and was highlighted by Ashes victories and taking over 250 international wickets. He is definitely one of the most exciting bowlers of his generation. On his day, he would match anyone for pace, bounce, hostility, movement and control. And this helped him to become the youngest bowler to take 50 Test wickets for England. He's now begun a career as a broadcaster and commentator for Test Match Special and TNT, and it's fair to say he's an absolute natural, giving a brilliant insight into the game and knowledge to the public. Steve, really, thanks very much for coming on and chatting to us here. How are you going at the moment?
Yeah, good. Nice to see a couple of my old coaches there. I've spent a lot of time with you guys over the years, didn't I? So it's nice to reconnect, but it's the IPL time.
So I'm bored.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, Jono, to be fair, I spent a lot of time with you. How am I not bored at the moment?
Yeah, that's me again.
It's a super quiet time for broadcasters if you're not working on the IPL. So it's actually been quite nice over the last 6 weeks or so just to spend some time at home with my young family and refresh my brain for the summer ahead from a broadcasting perspective, and to observe as much of the early rounds of the county championship as possible, because it seems like it's a bit of a fresh start for everyone in English cricket.
Do you still get excited by county cricket, Steve?
Yeah, I do because even though I finished my England career in 2017, I think I played my last international game and then struggled with injuries and stuff after that. I still thoroughly enjoyed being in those domestic environments because of the young players that were coming through and feeling like you could make a difference as someone who had seen a lot throughout their career to then help those young players make the best of theirs. And I'd like to think that would be reflected in what the young guys that I played with and shared a dressing room with would say about me. So, I kind of look at it now with half an eye on who's next from an England perspective. And as a broadcaster, I want to be across as much as I possibly can. So to connect with county cricket and see what's going on is also an important thing for me to do my job properly.
Do you miss those early season stiffness and
just the question?
Getting into the throes of fast bowling again, waking up in the morning, not being able to touch your toes, that type of thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I've got a lot more into golf in the last 4 months or so, and on a few of the days that the boys were out there playing pre-season games, I was wrapped up in lots of layers out there playing golf, thinking the last thing I would want to be doing right now is Jono shouting at me, telling me I had to bowl 20 overs in the day at Merchant Taylor's school. That's not what
with the wind howling, and it's those days wrapped up warm. Absolutely.
Isn't it amazing how Jono become the old poacher turned gamekeeper? Could I get him out of that changing room in pre-season? No chance. As soon as he became a coach, what was he doing to you, Finny?
Yeah, running me up and down. Yeah,
I was very good with my fast bowlers. I had my fast bowling hat on a lot while I coached them, I can tell you. Not like you now, Shiny.
Absolutely. Right, Finny, can we take you back to where it all began at Middlesex? At 2005, you'd have probably had Jono somewhere around in the background. You were the youngest player to play for Middlesex at 16. Can you talk us through that, please?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit unexpected because I had been offered my first professional contract just before I turned 16 by John Embury. But it was never on my mind that I might be in the hunt to play for the first team. It was more just they were trying to lock me in to have a bit more control of what I was doing between the ages of 15 and 18 to hopefully then develop into a player that could play a lot for the club in the first team. So there were a few injuries. I'd bowled pretty well in practice and for the second team in the games that I had played up until that point. And it wasn't a championship game. I didn't make my championship debut until 2007 when I just turned 18. But it was a university game and the main bowlers were rested. There were a few injuries. And yeah, I got called up into that first team that contained Ed Smith, Ben Hutton, Jamie Dalrymple. There were guys who played a lot of cricket playing in that. So to be parachuted into that as a 16-year-old was something that was amazing and a great experience. And I think exposing me to men's cricket early helped me develop at a quicker rate than my peers at that stage.
Yeah. And so Jono, I'd actually poached him to Somerset, obviously, when you'd started. So he got the lure of the bright lights of Taunton from London. Did you actually play against Jono in the early years?
I don't know if I did. We played a couple of second team games at Taunton, but I can't imagine Jono would have been playing in those.
Unless he was coming back from injury.
Coming back from an injury, yeah.
Exactly. No, I didn't play against Jono, but then you came back, didn't you, in 2007 to play for the club, and your first game was at Taunton for Middlesex, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was an interesting game, that one, Finn. You didn't play that one, did you, Finn?
I'm very, very glad I missed that. 850, wasn't it?
That was Tim Mertz's debut as well, wasn't it, I think? Yeah. And he batted 7 that day, Finny. I mean, can you believe that?
No, I can't.
Anyway, yes, we got 650 batting first, and they replied with 850, or we got 6 something, and they got 850. So yeah, it was a nice welcome back. But one little story to that is that every lunchtime in the old changing rooms, the change rooms combined, didn't they, on the stairway going to lunch. And every day I'd see Caddy, my old teammate, and I'd just smile at him and give him a big hug. Go, "How you going, mate? You're right." Every single day. And by the 4th day, when I'd bowled about 40 overs in the game, got 0 for 130, he sort of said to me, "What the hell are you doing, Jono? Why are you still smiling at me?" I said, "Because, mate, I know this is the only game I'm playing here this year." So yeah, he was. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah. So Finney basically finished me off basically at Middlesex because I had a 2-year contract in Middlesex, and then these young guns were coming through, and it was the old knock on the door and sort of going, "Look, Jono, your injuries and your body, etc., etc." We got a young Steve Finn coming through, so we don't really need you anymore. I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, that sounds great." So that was the way I sort of went out, really. Yeah.
So ironically, Finney put you out of your misery then.
He did put me out. I thank him very much.
And you were miserable at times, to be fair.
I do thank him for it, honestly. No, it's all good.
So Finney, let's move forward to 2010. So I'd obviously come across you quite a bit in England Lions. And, obviously between myself and Jono, we were trying to sort of work with you. And one thing I would say to everyone who's listening is, if Finney always had his own mind, that was really, really clear. And it was his absolute strength, especially early on in his career when he was trying to forge his way into a strong England side. And I do remember you were very, very focused on yes, you would work technically, but it was the mental side, I've got to get into this game. And I can remember we were actually in 2010, we were on a tour to the UAE. It was a 1-day tour. And we actually took this new piece of kit. It was a Stadium TrackMan. So it's the TrackMan that they used in golf. It was able to pick up speeds from a long, long way away. So we were about 80 meters away, getting speeds on you. And we also had a bit of footage that we took, which was a true 90-mile-an-hour ball, and it was at Hafiz. Do you remember that? You actually took his wicket, and you did, and that shows how competitive you were, because you obviously gave him a nice polite sort of see you later, and well tried, but that was our template bit of footage for your action. And that was the one that you went to England with, because you got picked on the tour, didn't you, to Bangladesh then? Can you remember your transition from England Lions into going on that tour to Bangladesh?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate, I think, that my transition wasn't that long. I think you see some guys who will go on 4 or 5 Lions tours and wonder if they're good enough, I think, or go into those Lions tours desperately trying really hard to make an impression. Whereas I was so wet behind the ears at that stage in 2010. I was 20 years old, only just turned 20 years old. And I was just going into it thinking, wow, what a great opportunity this is. We had some really good players who were trying to get back into the ODI team, didn't we? Ian Bell was on that trip.
Yeah.
There were some really experienced guys, Michael Lum, Craig Kieswetter, who were on the cusp of playing for the full England team. And I just remember going and thinking, it's almost like a bit of a free hit to me, to go there and just try and give as best account of myself. And if I wasn't ready, I wasn't ready. But the fact that it all happened so quickly, that I had that attitude on that tour, that I bowled well. I clearly caught Andy Flower's eye in the game that we played against the full England team on that trip. And then before I knew it, I was being flown to Bangladesh to make my test debut about 5 or 6 days after landing. So everything happened so quickly that I didn't have that much time to think about it, which actually now, knowing how much of an overthinker that I could have, that I was, or that I could be at times in my career, the fact that I didn't have to think about it that much really helped me. And I went into that Bangladesh tour, bowled well in the warm-up game, bowled well in the test match, and then felt accepted by those great players that were in that team. And that was a real, like, super accelerated 3 or 4 month period of my career, where I went from being a domestic player who had aspirations to then knocking shoulders with Kevin Peterson, Andrew Strauss, Alistair Cook, and feeling like I kind of belonged there. So yeah, that really short transition definitely helped me.
It's a massive feeling, that, isn't it? If you can get in early and feel like you belong, and it sounds so weird, doesn't it? Because you can be in cricket all those years, playing county cricket, picking up loads of wickets, desperate to play for England. It's the biggest thing you ever do, and you get there, but there's always that doubt, isn't there? There's always that doubt. Can I actually do it? Am I good enough? And as much as the bravado and everything that you think about, yeah, of course I can, until you put a performance in, until you start actually competing against the world's best, it's difficult to actually say you can. And actually, if you have a good game, it's amazing how your confidence levels can go through the roof with that, rather than the flip side of it. And you sort of always then clutching, aren't you, and wondering.
Yeah, and I remember there was a spell that I bowled with reverse swing, and I love bowling with reverse swing. I mean, the only thing that would encourage me to bowl a ball now, having been retired for 3 years, is if you gave me a dog-chewed ball that was reverse swinging, I'd probably dust my boots off and give it a go for you. I loved bowling with reverse swing. So the fact that this first tour was in Bangladesh allowed me to do something that I loved doing, which was bowling with that reverse swinging ball. And I bowled a spell, and Kevin Peterson came up to me afterwards. He was like, that's proper bowling. And as soon as someone like that says something like that to you, it just kind of relaxes you, and the weight goes off your shoulders. So it was clearly him being a good teammate saying something like that to me, but to know that you were accepted by those guys helped me hugely.
Yeah, and you also know with him, he meant it. He's not fluffing you there. It's he means that when he says that as well, which is great.
Yeah, definitely helped.
So that was at the age of 20. You made your debut. Can you remember your number?
647. Yeah,
correct.
I only know that because I've got some golf balls with that number on the side of it as a present.
And your first test wicket?
Was the famous Bangladeshi batter who was a night watchman, Shahadat Hussain.
Correct. Brilliant memory.
Collingwood.
Do you not find, Finny, do you not find like you make your England debut, like, and you get your cap and all that, like, which is amazing. But that number is the thing, isn't it? The number is your place in history. You are the 647th, did you say, player ever represent your country in 100 and whatever years, 150, 60, 70 years, whatever it is. That's incredible, isn't it? That's the bit that I think, really defines that sort of, step up.
Yeah, I'm being facetious when I say I didn't know my number. I
know
exactly.
Of course you did. I know. So your pin numbers, if you want a pin number.
It's something that, and when you get the cloth cap, and your first one doesn't have a number on, because the one that you go on tour with doesn't have the number stitched into the back. It's right at the back of your head that they stitch your number in history. But then when you get home from your first tour, there's a box waiting for you at your house, and it's from the hat makers, and it's your England cap, perfectly fitted to your head, with your number 647 stitched in the back of it, and yeah, that's hanging in my living room.
Yeah, nice. Real good.
Let's go on to your first Ashes tour, Finny. Can you remember what year that was?
Yeah, 10-11.
10-11. So talk us through that, because that's obviously must be a brilliant memory for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was so naive again at that stage. Like, in the build up to it, all everyone was telling me was how hard traveling to Australia was, and I was clearly wary. But I was someone who, because I was on England under-19s and England Lions, I'd never gone and done a winter away in Australia, so I'd never been there. I had no idea what the place was like. But I was just excited to be there. And again, I think at that stage of my career, I just saw it as a great free hit, a great opportunity of me to just go there, try my best. And if it didn't work out, then I'd have another opportunity, or I'd had other opportunities through my career as I developed and grew and became a better bowler. I didn't have any negative feelings in my mind about it at all. And when I reflect on that now, that's a mindset that I wish I could have found so much more throughout my career. That just feeling completely free, feeling as though you're just running up without your wings being clipped, and you were just letting the ball go. That is something that that I tried to recapture, but only managed to for short periods of my career for the rest of the time. So, yeah, my overriding feeling was that I just went there and gave it my best shot, and ended up playing in a winning Ashes series. So what's transpired since has kind of made me realise how special that was. But at the time, it just felt another series, another thing.
Well, you finished off with 14 wickets at 33 on that tour, which, that's an amazing effort.
In 3 tests that was as well.
Yeah, because you just looking there, that I mean, that's an incredible effort. Can we go back to that thing on feeling like your wings have been clipped, Finny? Because you were the most, I think, of all the bowlers. There's loads of bowlers I remember, and they were all brilliant. I was lucky enough to work with. Two of the probably most free spirits would be you. This is before you got into them, would be you and Woody, who just had that just amazing love for the game, a real laser beam focus on, I know where I want to get to. And, you were the youngest player for England to get to 50 wickets. So I would imagine at that time, or up to that time, you were feeling pretty free-spirited and probably doing what you did best. Talk us through how you felt your wings were clipped.
I think first and foremost, you have bad experiences along the way, and those clearly affect your confidence and the way that you commit to bowling the ball. But I think that's one of the most challenging things for bowlers, is, especially now with white ball cricket, is committing completely to bowling the ball, and just letting yourself be free and trusting all the work that you've done to be able to deliver what you're trying to. And at that stage in my career, I hadn't had any of those negative things in my mind. All I was thinking about were the positives of what I could do to affect a game, what I could do to try and win a game for England. But I suppose being dropped on that tour was the first time that I questioned myself in my career, because when I was playing for Middlesex, I just saw it as great experience. I loved doing it because I loved the club. I was doing it with my mates, which also helped as well. But being dropped for that fourth test was the first time it made me take a step back and think, oh, maybe what you're doing isn't right. And it's the first time I really properly beat myself up in my career, where I told myself that I wasn't good enough, and that if I kept doing what I was doing, then I was going to fail. So it made me reassess where I was at, I think. So that was the first time that I clipped my own wings.
Yeah.
And what was the reason for being dropped again, Finney? Just for everyone.
Too expensive, not enough control. Which again is, I mean, it was justified because Tim Bresden came in and bowled amazingly tight and quick in that fourth test match, and I think took 4 wickets in the first innings and helped win the game. So it was the right decision, but it was the first time that I had to really reassess where I was at in my career.
Yeah.
So when you
sorry,
go on, Jono.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because I remember when you came back from that tour and it was suddenly all about trying to not go for runs, wasn't it? It was, I've got to get my economy rate, at 3 or under. I have to get my economy rate 3 or under. And when you start a county season thinking that, how did you go about trying to do that ultimately? Because you are always someone, I want to play free, I want to get better, I want to be the best. So that laser focus Shiny talks about is I have to now bowl at under 3 and over. How did that affect, or how did you go about that?
Well, I suppose you go through this, and it's like a lot of it is exploration with what you can do, like whether there's anything technically that you can change that's going to help you, or that you can tweak as opposed to change, that is going to help you become more disciplined at hitting the top of off stump, or is it a mindset thing? So you're like problem solving on the spot as to thinking what it is. And I think that in that time, sometimes I'd be too careful about putting the ball there as opposed to bowling it, whereas when I was really effective, I bowled the ball hard into the top of off stump. But when I came back from that tour, there were probably games in that period straight afterwards where I'd be trying to just put the ball there in order to not go for runs, which is a completely different mindset, and it's not a fast bowler's mindset.
Yeah, and you were someone who actually hit the stumps more than any other tall fast bowler that I'd known, to be honest, because you arrowed in on the top of off and people were actually sitting back on you and getting bowled. But I remember you coming back from there, and I remember having conversations around, you've got to remember what you are as well, and you are a really tall guy. What, you 6'7", is it? You can bowl 90 miles an hour. You move the ball, so you are naturally going to leak runs more than other people. Your natural trajectory is getting a bit more bounce. You are going to get more 3/4 edges. You are, if someone gets half an edge on, it's going to fly. So your economy rate almost was a little bit like, well, it's not ridiculous. It's not stupid anyway. You're picking up wickets, for God's sake. Don't focus too much on trying to change too much, because what you've actually got and how you've started has been absolutely brilliant. And that's the difficulty, isn't it? You're being told one side that you need to reduce, but actually what got you there in the first place was you being you, right? And it's a real crossroads, that. It's a tough moment.
And that was a challenge for me. So I turned 21 at the beginning of that summer. I was 22 at the beginning of that summer, the 2011 summer. And you're like sat there thinking, well, I thought what I was doing was the best for me, but I know that I won't play for England, because you're explicitly told I won't play for England unless I can control the scoreboard. I could take as many wickets as you want, but unless you can buy into the team or ethos of controlling the scoreboard, you're basically not going to play. So I didn't play a test match that summer at all for England, when I was probably bowling as well as I've ever bowled in my life that year, which is this crazy position where there were times where I did play for England where I wasn't bowling that well. But because of the way the team was set up at the time and the great bowlers that we had, and the fact that I did leak runs more than the others, I didn't play at all that summer.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because then you're talking about how people balance sides, and us as coaches, and John and I have both been head coaches. Variety is it's the lifeblood of a team, isn't it? and let's face it, I think both of John and I, being ex-bowlers as head coaches, would always say, well, we need 20 wickets. You've just got to get 20 wickets, and you can then work out how to bring the runs down. That would be my take on that. But there again, there aren't that many bowling coaches who are head coaches, are there? And it must have been tough for you at that particular time, because I was obviously around and involved with England, so I was sort of trying to communicate with the England coaches when you weren't in the side as to what we needed to do to get you back in. And it was really clear that, I do remember that, it was really clear that you've got to be able to improve your economy rate. Can you remember, were you ever given any advice on how to do that from England? Was there a method that they wanted you to go with, or a type of bowler that they wanted you to become? And we're not naming any names here. We're just interested in the advice that you may have got. Should you have taken it? Yeah. Or at the time, did you feel you really couldn't say anything apart from just go for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I remember of that time was it was up to me to go back and figure it out. And that's where your relationship with your bowling coach at your county, which I was, or Jono was my bowling coach at Middlesex. And you go back and you problem solve in a safe environment. And that's what I always felt Middlesex was to me, was a safe environment for me to go and be vulnerable to Jono and say, like, mate, I'm banging my head against the brick wall here. I'm trying to go at under 3 runs and over, but I'm finding it really hard, but I don't want to lose what makes me as a bowler. And it's important, I always found, and as I'm sure we'll discuss later in the podcast, it's having that safe place that you can go back to as a player, and in particular as a fast bowler, where you can have those honest conversations and chart a plan and a course forward for you as a player. So I was lucky that I had that with Jono. And I would say it was more up to us at that time to figure it out, as opposed to being told by the ECB what to do.
Yeah. Jono, how did you feel? Because you obviously had, your responsibility wasn't to England, it was actually to Middlesex and also to Finney as a young fast bowler coming back to you. How did you work with Finney on that?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of alluded to it earlier that it was a really tough one, because when you've got a young fast bowler who, is breaking records basically, and you're being told, well, you're going for too many runs, you're thinking, well, hold on. From an outside looking in, you're going, well, hold on. You've got 3 or 4 other guys that are not going for runs. If you have one guy who actually leaks a little bit more because of his height, because of his pace, because of his bounce, etc., that's okay, isn't it? And that, as you said, when you put your coach's head on from the outside, you're sort of going, well, but they've obviously set their target and that's what they want to do, and they're in their right to do it. So how do you go about, dropping half a run and over or whatever? And it's a really difficult one for someone like Finney, as I said, because you want him to strive to bowl 88, 90, 92, 95 miles an hour. You want him to do that because that's game changing. That's world class. But if you get something minuscule wrong in your action, trying to bowl at 92 miles an hour, you are going to leak a little bit straight, a little bit wide, a little bit full, a little bit short. So what do we want? Do we want Finney to now bowl at 85, 86 miles an hour and dob it on a length a little bit better? That wasn't what we wanted to do. So I think we just went around, it was a while back now, Finney, but I think we went around just trying to clean up your action a little bit, just try and make it a little bit more economical if we can. There was no way we were ever going to try and drop pace. There's no way we're ever going to try and drop what made Finney him. But can we just clean things up a little bit? Can we make it a little bit more economical and see if that works, basically? And the other thing, of course, is at county cricket, you're not going at 4 and over. You're going to go at 3 and over because you're a fine bowler and you're going to take wickets and you're going to do the job in county cricket. But obviously, when you move up to that level and the wickets are different and the players are better, you only have to be slightly out, and it you get punished for it. Sorry, Finney, I cut in there.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on. I think the thing that you've also then got to contemplate as a bowler is, do you then set more defensive field? Do you bring your gully out to a cover? Do you bring your third slip out to a cover? But then you're losing catches and you've less chance of taking wickets. So that's the balance that I found I was constantly fighting in that time, was like not wanting to sacrifice any of my attacking instincts because I was an attacking bowler. But where is that sacrifice that you're willing to make?
And I think you mentioned it. I think you mentioned it earlier, and I vaguely remember the conversation actually about you trying to be more accurate, and so you end up just trying to bowl an area, and you're not bowling the ball. And all of a sudden, when you try and bowl an area, your pace drops off a little bit. You end up going a little bit too full, and there's nothing on it. And when there's nothing on it, you get punished more than when you're 100%. So, yeah, it was a tricky one, Shiny. That, I mean, you were involved in that as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I suppose I was very lucky to have a bowler of the quality of you, and the fact that we were friends as well. So that helped. So I was able to, pretty much just be a set of different eyes on everything that you were doing, because I was totally confident that you'd, as you said there, Finney, going back to your safe place is important, really important. Going back to a coach that you know and trust is really important, who's going to spend a lot of time with you. And for someone like yourself, it actually showed that you had a huge amount of resolve. You built some robustness in there, because there were some tricky times about to come up, weren't there? But just before we talk about the inevitable sort of knee gate and shortened run up and stuff, you were actually doing pretty well.
I love that.
You were doing pretty well in ODI cricket, weren't you? You were basically you were the top ranked ODI bowler. You were a key bowler for England. You got to 100 ODI wickets. You were the third quickest Englishman to get to 100 ODI wickets. So, what did you find? Did you find there was a difference in ODI cricket to Test match cricket for the way you could use yourself?
What was your economy rate in those 100? Sorry, no, carry on.
Do you know what? It was remarkably good. I think I was under 5 and over for most of my career in ODI cricket. And actually,
well, that's wealthy now.
Yeah. What I found was that the game plan was so much more simple, and the passages of play dictated to you how you had to bowl, as opposed to you having to do it yourself. You just had to hammer a back of a length over the top of the stumps and challenge people to make mistakes. Whereas in 4-day cricket, you can't live around that length, or Test match cricket, because it's too easy for people to defend and not get out to it. So I found that the 1-day game, especially the 50-over game, suited my natural strengths, which was angling the ball back into right-handers, bowling 90 miles an hour, keeping the line tight, and bowling back of a length, and just hammering away at that with the odd change of pace. I mean, the game is clearly a lot different now than it was then, but it definitely simplified it in my mind at that time, and I think that's why it was probably my best format.
See, that's an interesting one there, Finney, because I think, of probably the two best bowlers of my sort of coaching area in the middle overs would have been you and Plunky. Because you both, it was a similar method, but different, if you see what I mean. Yours, as you said, was about just choking line, wasn't it? And giving them nothing to hit. Whereas Plunkett's was a little bit more around sort of variation of bounce with his cross seamers, heavy lengths, bumpers, to try and get people to play square of the wicket if they wanted to take him on. And he ended up being very, very successful. But the clue was in the type of bowlers that you both were when you were at your best, which was really aggressive, clear plans in those middle overs. And it's interesting, isn't it? Is 50-over cricket going to gather a little bit of pace in the next few years? That's going to be interesting. See whether the world would do that. Do you think that type of bowling now converts into T20 cricket as well?
I certainly think wicket takers, yes. I think you have to have wicket takers in those middle overs in white ball cricket, because if you don't, you get hurt so badly at the end now if you're not looking to have that intent to take wickets. So what I would always do when I had the ball in my hand was look to take wickets. And that doesn't mean looking to bowl big in swinging Yorkers every ball. It's just trying to stack the odds more in your favour with the size of boundaries or the pitch that's in front of you or the player. but you're constantly making these decisions. But I would always err on the side of aggression, which again I think it slows the scoring rate. It allows people not to be settled as you go into that back end, and there's definitely space for that in 2020 cricket.
So, Finny, you're a pretty feisty bloke on the pitch. Okay, let's ignore the cash that's on offer now, right? How would you fancy playing T20 cricket now?
I mean, it's bloody hard, isn't it? And I think when you're watching, you have to remind yourself that guys aren't robots, because if you miss as a bowler, you see so many guys hitting what would be the perfect Yorker. If we're playing the Yorker game that we used to play, where you have to try and get the ball underneath the bar in the block hole, there are so many Yorkers now that would go underneath that bar easily, that go for boundaries. So
get out the park, yeah.
I think the hardest thing that I would find now in T20 cricket is for that not to wind me up, and then it affects your next ball. I think I think the best bowlers have this ability to just be able to wipe what has happened and focus completely on what they're about to do. And I think that's quite consistent across all the best T20 players in the world with the ball in hand. So that would be the biggest challenge, would be the mental side of the game, of knowing that you've nailed your skill, but it's gone for 4 or 6. Can you do it again?
Yeah.
It was interesting when I was lucky enough to work with TC and Sam Curran, and you know you're setting T20 fields and plans and everything, and then they go out to play, and all of a sudden you see the field, you go, right, I know what he's going to bowl, and then it's set up for the big offside pitch or something, and then all of a sudden it's a bouncer to the short side, and you're like, oh, hold on, what's going on here? And I think they were the ones that, from my perspective, from certainly domestically, started bluffing and then double bluffing and bowling the ball that the batter wasn't expecting. I mean, that's just normal now, but we're talking maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, they certainly were doing that. And it was quite interesting as a coaching point of view. You've set all your plans up, but actually they're doing the opposite. Now, how do you react to that? Well, it's actually you've got to give the player the freedom to feel the game. And I think, Shiny, we've spoken about this previously about coaching. How do you coach a player to understand the game and feel the game and know what's required within the game? Because coaching's become very planned and structured, and this is what we're going to do to him and his match up and this and that. But actually, how do you learn the game? The feeling of the game when you're out there. It's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is. I remember I used to go to... So Trent Bridge was an easy place for me to go and watch games, to sort of look at potentially young cricketers to move into the lines, etc. And difficult place to bowl Trent Bridge in one-day cricket because it's so small. And I remember, I was watching Jake Ball bowl once, really decent one-day bowler. And I spoke to his bowling coach afterwards, Andy Pick, and the ball had gone everywhere for everyone. And I said, Picky, how do you review that with your bowlers? And he said, it's quite simple, Shiny. I just say to them, lads, if you end with the ball you started with, you've done pretty well in this game at this ground. It was do you know what? It was one of those moments where I just thought, oh, brilliant. You're sort of not taking it too seriously because it is an absolutely crazy game at times. And I think there's a certain amount of, and I go back to the fact that you were pretty feisty on the pitch, Finny. I literally don't see bowlers lose it now because they're actually sort of at peace with themselves that even their best balls that would have gone under any bar you could set up are going out of the park. And I suppose as long as you've practiced them, and when you look at it now, you've only got a certain amount of balls that you can bowl. There's and Peter Moores is really good with this actually. When you talk about, he's now on the franchise circuit and goes round. There's sort of 2 lines, which is straight or wide, and there's 3 lengths, which is either at your toes, right in the middle, or at your head. And you've got to work out the different paces and the different times that you do that. And, what I quite like is people seem to be simplifying it now. And, as a coach, the days of sending out, Jono, you said about matchups and stuff like that. I'm sort of beginning to understand that. That's for the captains, isn't it? To be able to to make decisions and who they can possibly go with. But I'm seeing that generally maybe the best T20 fast bowlers are the ones that keep it really simple and don't take it too seriously if they get met, which, let's face it, in this game at the moment is going to happen, isn't it? Finny, do you think if you were playing now, do you think that playing all formats, or let's go specifically playing T20, do you think that would have helped your international cricket? Or do you think the segregation from sort of like Jimmy and Broady went to just test match players? Or, how do you think that works for the modern one-day fast bowler? Or, sorry, modern fast bowler?
Well, I think it's very challenging because when you're talking about playing T20, I look at the guys that are playing the IPL now that could be playing a test match in early June. If they get all the way to the IPL final, they'll come back, have 3 days prep, and then they're into a test match. So I think the frequency or the gaps between games being so small now, I think it's really hard to prepare properly for it. So I think we are going to see more segregation of people who are specialists in each of the formats. And I think the games are really different. When I played all three formats for most of my England career. I was in all three squads a lot of the time, and the difference in skills wasn't vast between the three, especially 50 over in T20 cricket. But you felt like you could survive and manage all three as long as you practiced a good Yorker and you had one slower ball. Then I think that you could transcend across formats, but now I think what you're required to do as a bowler, you need to have a ball that spins in. You need to have a ball that spins away. You probably need to have another slower ball as well that goes straight. You need to be able to nail your Yorker. Already, there's like these skills that you have to practice in order to get better at that you just don't have the time to. So I won't be surprised now if we see fewer and fewer guys playing all three formats and becoming specialists in one of them.
Well, what did you find the hardest format?
I found the hardest format. That's a good question. I suppose it varied throughout my career, but I think I found a way to be competitive in whichever format that I played. But there were times where I found the 4-day game really challenging for fitness and the stuff that we spoke about earlier, where you're second guessing yourself a lot. Whereas the white ball games I found really focused my mind and lasered me into what I had to do. So I probably found the most challenging format, the longest format. On balance.
Yeah. Let's go to a little bit of, you're where you needed to be coached. Okay, you needed to find some help. Okay, so it's well publicised that you shortened your run up at a certain time in your career, and if we're looking at all bowlers out there, we're not just talking about young bowlers, but obviously yourself, you were a proven international cricketer, and you decided to, or you received some advice on shortening a run. Can you talk us through that? What obviously how it happened, and then what happened subsequently?
Yeah, I mean, I was reluctant to do it, but in 2012, for some reason, I had a really long run up, and I got a bit close to the stumps in 2012 and started near the stumps. It probably happened once every 4 or 5 overs, maybe. So not super frequently, but it happens sometimes. And I nicked off Graham Smith in a test match at Headingley, bowling down the slope, caught by Strauss at first slip. And the umpire called a dead ball, Steve Davis. And from that moment forward, every time I need the stump, it was a dead ball. And then about 3 months later, the laws of the game got changed to then it being a no ball, with which comes consequences, especially in white ball cricket. If you bowl a no ball, clearly it's a free hit, which you can't afford to do, especially in T20s. So I had to find a fix around it. And when I look at that time in my career, I went from playing all of the summer straight into a T20 World Cup I went straight from there to India for 2 months to play test matches, went straight from there home for a week, then back to India for a month to play white ball stuff, then went from there to straight to New Zealand to play 3 test matches, 3 ODIs and 3 T20s. So there was no time in that period of my life for me to take a step back and work on what I needed to, which was the mechanics of my running to the crease, which was making me dart in at the last second and disturb the stumps with my knee. I had to look for a short-term fix in order to keep playing. Like, bear in mind, 18 months previously, I missed an entire summer of test match cricket because I wasn't in the team. I wasn't prepared to give that away. So I looked for a short-term fix to try and keep myself in the team, not knee the stump, not cause the team no balls. So I thought that shortening my run up and just sprinting towards the middle of the crease was the way that I could not lose my momentum, and that I could not go near the stumps, because if you don't lose your momentum, which I was doing, you're not going to dart in towards the stumps. So in a long story short, it was a short-term fix to a problem that just required me taking a month out to work on my running mechanics to keep that natural long flow to my run up that I had before.
Yeah. And did you find a way back from that?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So again, the knock-on effect of me shortening my run-up was that it made my levers really short when I was bowling, and I went from being this free-flowing, long-levered bowler that used the momentum that my run-up gave me to get momentum through the crease, to a bowler that was forcing the ball down there, which was great when everything clicked and it went well. I was bowling like 95 miles an hour. I felt in great control when it was good, but then on the bad days, it would be all over the place. And that was a scary feeling, was being that out of control. So then everything knocked on to get to a point in 2013-14 where I went on an Ashes tour, basically like got myself in such a tiz and so confused with what I was trying to do that I couldn't be selected. Was sent home from that Ashes tour, and then that's when me and Jono really got our heads together with the help of Angus Fraser and Andy Flower to try and realign and unpick the tangle that I'd got myself in for those 18 months previous, or for that year previously. And that was a huge challenge for us at the time. And me and Jono spent a lot of time in the indoor school before anyone would get there, trying to iron out these kinks in my action that had come as a result of me changing my run up to a short run up 12 months previously.
Jono, how did you approach that one?
So how do I approach that? Obviously Philly at that point was, you couldn't get any lower. I obviously knew him as a bubbly, positive guy who loved cricket, and, to see him the complete opposite and being absolute pieces was really hard, actually. And I suppose from my point of view, I with Finney, I sort of took away the England bit. I don't know if you remember this, Finney, but we sort of said, let's forget England for a while, right? That's down the line somewhere, right? Let's focus on you being like, and this is going to sound weird because we went above England in the end. We said, let's focus on you being world's best. What does world's best look like? What does world best mean? Right? So we talked about 6'7", bounce, swing, control. Right. So that's our aim. That's what we're going to do. Right. We're going to set the bar as high as that. And we're going to aim for it. And do you know what? Finney, out of every person I've ever met, the hard work that bloke puts into training and practice and being the best he possibly can be was unbelievable. We were in the indoor school 7:30 in the morning because we wanted to do it away from the other guys. We wanted to do it privately. We didn't want other people. It's difficult at Lords because you get members of public, you get people booking nets and everything in the indoor school. So we wanted to be just us, no one else around. So it was like 7:30, 7:15 in the morning. And we started just with a standing start, didn't we? Start getting your arms moving, start feeling your length of your action and your arms flowing. And, and that was the start of it, really. And what the one thing we always joke about, the one thing we made sure that happened was we took the GPS out of your vest. because if the sports science guys knew how many overs Finney put in that pre-season, I don't think. I remember having a conversation with you about it,
Workload's
Charlie.
out of the
Not trying to
window,
get you in trouble about it, but he was never gonna like get over it by bowling a few overs a day, right? So it had to be the hard yards, and if you're going to have anyone who's going to put the hard yards in, it was Finney. So it was a process, wasn't it? But it came through nicely. And I think, Shiny, you were going to mention about the running style stuff as well, which was really important, an integral part to it.
Yeah, we had a guy called Ralph Brandon, didn't we? Who, was firstly an athletics coach, but then he was head of science and medicine. And I can remember we dragged him along, didn't we, to Old Merchant Taylor's on frosty mornings. So that you remember that piece of footage that we always went, which was 2010, that 90-mile-an-hour ball on TrackMan, which on a gun on TV would have been probably closer to 94, 95. But it was also a wonderful technique from a run-up point of view, and we sort of tried to use that as a baseline to do your running drills. Just talk us through how that went, Finney.
Well, we used to talk. The word bounce was what we spoke about, wasn't it? So, when I was running, I had a bounce to myself in that run up where it gave me time when I got to the crease to be able to unlock all of my levers and my height and the braced front leg and the whip over the top of it. So we were looking to refine that bounce, I think, because it had become quite flat and quite hurried and not very smooth and natural. Like I was a good natural runner, but in that period of my life, if you put a cricket ball in my hand, I looked like I'd never run before in my life. And it was about unpicking that and regaining that bounce. So the drills that we did, I mean, people, if they'd have seen us doing them, they must have thought we were crazy. But I always had a cricket ball in my hand to make me familiar with the feeling of doing these bounce drills with a cricket ball in my hand. But I'd be running backwards, I'd be doing up and over the fences, but all with a cricket ball in my hand, with Raf barking at me, telling me that it wasn't good enough. But it was like a resetting of like my core central nervous system to be able to relax with a cricket ball in my hand and run naturally with a cricket ball in my hand, so that then when I got to the crease, it didn't feel rushed, it didn't feel forced. I felt that flow and whip through the crease, and those two things hand in hand, the technical work that me and Jono did for my position at the crease and the strength of my action at the crease, plus the run-up stuff that we did with Raf, is what got me back to playing for England again, which is something that I say it to Jono occasionally, but I'm eternally grateful for the work and dedication that Jono put into me, especially through my entire career, but especially in that period. It was unbelievably selfless, and without Jono, I'd have never ever been able to come back to be anywhere near the bowler that I was. So again, publicly, I thank you very much for that, Jono.
Well, and do you know what,
Johnny, but go on, sorry, Sean.
You're a humble bloke, very, very humble bloke, and it's great. Do you know what? This is lovely because coaches, you don't coach to get to get praise, but it's lovely when as a coach you put your neck on the line, don't you? Because you're having to try and give ideas to someone, give some confidence, build some belief back into it. And I know how hard you worked on that, Jono, because we were sort of constantly toing and froing a little bit on the phone about it. My job was to try and get Finney back, but I knew that you were the best person to do that because of your history that you had. And I saw that piece of work going on because you were constantly sending me through the footage, and it was probably the best piece of repair work I've ever seen. Over a long period of time. So Finney, ultimately, yes, you've had to do it, but I think, Jono, you have to take a lot of credit for, you'd have been having to soak up Finney's tantrums, and we've all seen his tantrums. They're pretty epic, aren't they? So, you unfortunately, mate, you got that for a year, while I sat back going, ooh.
When you used to come for when you used to come for the odd session, I'd say, go on, Shine Dog, you'll go.
No, he's all yours. But I tell you what, so there's a couple of things that came from that, Finney. there's a couple of really important things that came to that from my point of view. So the first thing is we kept that piece of footage that was always something that we referred back to because it was you at your natural best. It also has changed the way I coach. If ever I talk about coaching, I talk about bandwidths, and you protect a bowler's own technique and method within that bandwidth. Now, there's a bit of wriggle room within it, but ultimately it's theirs and they own it. And because your technique changed reasonably quickly, didn't it? But we couldn't actually stop it from happening. So, I've sort of designed my own way now where I coach through bandwidth. So I never let a player, whether it's, okay, so if it's an arm, if it's a leg, if it's a rhythm that changes, we get into it really, really quickly. So we don't let it happen for a day. We don't let it, well, a day it can happen, but hopefully not a week, hopefully not 2 weeks, into a month, into something that's really tough to repair. And I remember all Jono's notes, all of his footage that was coming in on the project. I've still got it here, sort of sat on my iPad. I can see, the dated stuff and how you did it. And it was a brilliant bit of work from both of you. And it's completely led to a change of how I coach all my bowlers now. So all of my bowlers at knots, they have a bandwidth that keeps them in their own, hopefully, sweet spot. And that's down to your vulnerability, Finney, saying you needed help, and Jono saying, yeah, well, I'm the man to do that. So let's talk about the success of it. All right. So you then get picked, don't you, in 2015 for the Ashes Test against Australia at Edgbaston. So talk us through that day.
Yeah, I think the emotions that I was feeling then were doubting, because all the stuff that was written, and it was hard to stay away from it then. So it'd be impossible for young players to stay away from it now with social media. But it was on my mind that a lot of people had said that they didn't think I would ever play for England again. And I used that as motivation in that time to get back to that point. On those tough mornings, it was always like a no, stuff you. I'm not letting this defeat me. I'm going to come back from this. But then when you find out you're playing that test match and you're stood there at the back of your mark and you've done all this work, there is that person on your shoulder that's like, maybe you're not quite up to it. And the thing that I'm most proud of at that time and in that moment when I got asked to bowl, I think it was the 8th over on the first morning of that test, was that I allowed myself to commit to what all that work that we'd done. I trusted it. And because we'd done so much work, and because we built up my confidence slowly and gradually, like climbing a ladder, to get back into that test arena, I was able to take a deep breath and trust what I was doing. And the last ball of that first over, Steve Smith had got 200 the week before at Lords. Australia had won the test match. This was like a must-win in a home Ashes series. And I bowled my 6th ball and it nicked him off and caught first slip, caught Alistair Cook. So Smith's gone for nothing first morning of the test. And if I could bottle like one moment in my life, outside of the moment my daughter was born 15 months ago, if I could bottle one moment in my life and relive it and recount it, like I would give an infinite amount of money to be able to do that. That from the zip of it coming off my fingertips to seeing it kiss the edge and then go to Cook at first slip. And then that celebration, that is like the happiest moment of my life. And that was as a result of all the work that we did.
So my story on that day, Finney, was, we'd obviously worked, we talked about world's best. And one of the things we talked about was swing, right? And it was something that you had the ability to do, but had never used. And for various different reasons, you felt more in control of the wobble seam. There were team sort of stuff that was going on as well that wanted you to bowl wobble seam. But we said, okay, look, world's best, 6'7", 90 miles an hour, swinging it away. Can't be any better than that, right? So we did all that work on that control and the seam and the swing and everything. And I remember I was at Richmond in a second team game, coaching a second team game, and I remember it coming up on the screen, and you're stood at the top of your mark, and there were a few lads in it. I'm just going, Finney, hold it seam up, and that's all I'm saying. Hold it seam up, hold it seam up. Yeah. And the first ball you bowled, it swung outside of something. It might have been a lead, but it swung, and I was the most happy that I didn't care what happened after that almost, because I knew you'd let go. I knew that you trusted everything that you'd worked on, and the whole winter and the year before was absolutely worth it because you trusted it. And the fact that you took wickets doing it, that was the byproduct of it. But the fact that you had the balls basically to stand there, hold it seam up, and swing it. I thought it was amazing. It was so good. Great to watch.
It's fabulous. You know this about me, Jono. I believe, I get the wobble seam. It's got a place, but the ultimate skill is to be able to swing a ball. That is the ultimate skill. And I can remember watching that day as well, and know how invested you were in it, and it was fabulous. Now, Finney, we kept you for a long time. I want to go now to just a little bit about coaching and a couple of your thoughts. I'm going to sort of almost quick fire you a bit. So through your career, do you think you were overcoached? Do you think your natural side was ever coached out of you, or were you pretty happy with how you've managed to sort of go through your career?
Just a quick break in the episode. One of the things we're now offering through Fast Bowlers is personalized video analysis for fast bowlers. Players can send in side-on and rear-on footage of their action and receive a detailed annotated video report from coaches like Shiny and Jono, with feedback on what they're seeing technically, areas to work on, and practical recommendations or drills to help improve performance. That can either be done as a standalone coaching review or alongside a full pace flow biomechanics report through our partnership with Dynetic, combining detailed biomechanical profiling and world-class coaching insight. If you'd like to find out more, head to the website linked in the description.
No, I was definitely happy with how I was coached. I regret one moment of vulnerability that I allowed the wrong information in, because you both know me well, and I'd be stubborn at times if I didn't believe what we were chatting about was the right thing for me. I had one moment of vulnerability where I let the wrong information in, and it derailed me for a couple of years of my career. So on the whole, I would say I'm very happy with how I was coached, but it was my own weakness and vulnerability that let that happen, as opposed to a coach's mistake, because coaches are there to give ideas to the players. They're there to provoke thought for the players, and it's up to the player, the best players, decipher that information and choose what works for them. So long-winded answer to your quick-fire question.
No, that's a brilliant it's a brilliant piece of advice, isn't it? It's a brilliant piece of advice for anyone there who is being coached. Do you think science has a place in the modern fast bowler's life?
Yes, I do. I still am a bit old school in the sense that I believe that feel and working out situation whilst you're in them is vitally important to be a good, sustainable fast bowler. But I understand how science can help you be better informed about stuff, whether that's technique, whether that's information on opposition, whether that's information about yourself. I think that you can be really well supported by the right science.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you could replay your career now, what would you do differently?
not go to that bloody short run up.
And play
there you go.
T20.
Quick question, quick fire answer. There you go.
Save the pain and go to T20. All right, now this one's a really interesting one for everyone out there. You're now a broadcaster. You see an awful lot of cricket, and we've got an exciting summer coming up. Who are the best England or potential England bowlers you have seen, and why?
I look for guys in my kind of mold, like guys who are wicket takers, guys who can change games. And we're lucky actually at the moment. We're blessed in this country with some really exciting young players. So the ones at the moment, I would say Sonny Baker started the season very well, but to me, from what I've watched of him, Alfie Ogborn at Somerset looks exciting, even though in that team it's going to be hard for him to play loads of games. But
so the left arm side of it, yeah.
he looks like someone to be very excited about. Nav Sharma at Middlesex excites me as well because he has a quirky action, but he's played all 3 games for Middlesex so far this summer, and looks to be someone who's going to improve
takes wickets,
quickly.
doesn't he?
Yeah, takes wickets, threatens good players. So there's a spell he bowled to Labuschagne, was it last summer, Jono, where you're watching it thinking, oh, this is a 19-year-old rushing and having one of the world's best test batters in trouble.
Yeah, that's right.
So those are the 3 off the very top of my head that I think of, but we're lucky in this country at the moment that there are quite a few coming through.
Yeah, nice. And do you know what I love about that is you've not gone with the obvious. The guys out there, you've actually shown that you're watching some of the sort of the real proper county cricket that's going on out there.
I'm a Badger. You both know that.
You are a Badger. You are a Badger. And here you go, Finney. You've obviously got a fantastic career building in broadcasting, but do you think you'll fancy coaching one day?
I like the idea of coaching, yeah. And I think that one of the things that kept me going as a player as long as it did, even though that in reality I could have retired in 2018 after I had my second knee surgery, knowing that I would never be the bowler that I was before, which was immensely frustrating for me, because you're constantly chasing this former version of yourself that's not obtainable because of your body. But the thing that gave me great joy was working with the younger players and seeing them develop around me at Middlesex firstly, and then down at Sussex for the last couple of years of my career. And the satisfaction that gave me, having talked to them in the morning of a game or the day before, and you're working on something, and then they go out into a game and do it, and the look on their face when they're like, it worked, like that is a feeling that as a coach I would imagine is amazing, and the feeling that you're helping guys fulfill their potential. So yeah, I would definitely be interested in coaching.
You have the coaching gene, don't you?
Yeah. Again, I love the game. I like observing the game. And I like seeing people fulfill their potential, because if I'm honest, I took 250 odd international wickets. I don't think I fulfilled my potential. And yeah, I would want to help people do that themselves.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Vinny, we've had well over an hour of your time, and I know you're a very busy man. You probably want to see your daughter now. You've got some golf coming up, I would imagine.
Not now.
If she wakes up now,
I'm normally in bed by 8:30. But mate, you've been so generous with your time, and we really, really appreciate it. And well, I look forward to hearing your dulcet tones on Test Match Special in the summer.
If you need a good kip, I'm your man. I'll put you to sleep.
No, I've got Jono for that. Vinny, thanks, mate, and good luck.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, buddy. Take care, mate.